Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build is the Lich Poison Aura of Decay, and with this we'll be using Aura of Decay for poison damage, not armor shred, but poison damage, and just running around doing an area of effect with poison, poisoning our enemies many times per second, and allowing Aura of Decay to stack a high amount of poison damage and just wipe them all out as we either stick there and keep hitting them with more, or run away. We'll also have Spirit Plague on so that we can increase our damage over time. For every enemy that we hit with it, we'll get a 75% increase. We'll also have the Wandering Spirits that will be going off on Instacast and Autocast, so they'll always be going off without stopping us. This will increase our single target damage as well as kill any stragglers behind us that somehow didn't die from Aura of Decay. Our main source of healing from this is that we will be using the 100% health healed per second with Aura of Decay by stacking a lot of healing effectiveness, and then at the same time we will also have a lot of leech. We'll be leeching a good portion of all the damage that we do. And if we have any mana issues, we'll have Transplant as our movement skill. That also gives us 30 mana every time that we transplant. You will spend most of your time in Reaper form. It won't have 100% uptime, but you can stay in it for quite a few minutes while it's active due to the healing and you not running out of life while in Reaper form, as you will out heal the degen for quite a while. Overall, this is a very tanky build. You can face tank bosses and you'll be just fine. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the skills, the interactions, and just how it all works. Hey, look at that. Damit's build planner's back. Woohoo! We will be slowly updating all of our 8.2 guides with the build planner as I go through them and update them. However, for now, we'll be starting with all the builds we do from this point. They'll obviously have Damit's build planner from this point out. For Wandering Spirits, we have it set up so that you're firing the poison bolts, which is going to help with our single target damage, as well as the Wandering Spirits will linger behind and kill things that didn't die on the first attack with Aura of Decay. We got 2 points in Souls of Rage, 1 point in Spectral Putrescence, 3 points in Soul of Filth, 3 points in Spirit Swarm, 4 points in Lingering Souls, 5 points in Thin Veil, and 1 point in Infectious Dead to convert all the necrotic damage to poison. Not a huge thing, since this refers to like them actually passing through mobs and doing the hit, not the poison bolts that they fire off, which is going to be our main damage source. With this setup, it's going to reduce the cooldown recovery, as well as increase the amount of them that you're getting, revealing them faster and for a longer duration. If you want to change this skill tree up, there's really not too many ways that I would change it. You obviously want the 1 point in Spectral Putrescence for the poison bolt that will be fired off at enemies. The 3 points in Soul of Filth and the 1 point in Spectral Scorn is going to increase your range and make it more frequently, so that you'll be able to do more damage from a further distance, as well as do more damage by firing the bolt more often. And of course, all the cooldown and recovery stuff is, you're really going to want it. Now, you can build it differently. You can build it into the fear side so that they fear enemies. Of course, this is going to make enemies run away, and it means they won't be touched by your Aura of Decay. Not a huge deal, but it could reduce damage that you take. Again, part of this build is going to be based around enemies actually hitting you, because it's going to do more damage to them, but we'll get into that when we get to the Aura of Decay skill. For Transplant, we have this set up to give us bone armor and to give us mana back, as well as some global damage. We've got 3 points in Acolyte's Fervor, 5 points in Sadism, which is going to increase our global damage by 25%, 3 points in Pale Blood, so every time that we transplant we get 30 mana back, 3 points in Bone Armor, so that for 4 seconds, every 10 seconds that we transplant, we'll take 12% less damage and have 300 flat armor added. With 3 points in Apostasy, that increases the duration from 4 seconds to 7 seconds. And then 2 points in Plated Stone increases the bone armor effect by 20%, so you'll have more armor. You'll go up to about 350 armor, and then you'll also have the less damage taken will go from 12% to about 14%. For Aura of Decay, this is going to be our main damaging skill. It will be boosted by the Spirit Plague damage over time global amount that we get, as well as the poison will stack with the Wandering Spirits poison. But Aura of Decay itself is going to be your main damage dealer for 2 reasons. 1, it will apply poison to enemies, and 2, when you get attacked, it can debuff the enemy, and it will automatically put more poison stacks on the enemy, killing them faster. While this will poison you, you will leech damage done, and if you have enough leech set up, like we have set up here, or if you have enough life to heal it, it's not only going to do more damage to them, but the cost for it to happen should be offset by the amount of leech and healing that you have. So basically you don't really take any more damage because you're instantly going to be healed, but the enemies will die much quicker. So for this setup, we got 4 points in absence of life. This gives us 12% of our missing life healed every second. Because we're stacking so much healing effectiveness, and this stacks with this, at about 700 to 800% healing effectiveness, we're going to be healing 80 to 90% of our life every second, which is going to keep you full at all times. So basically, since we have over a 3,000 health life pool, and all of that's being healed each second, you basically have the equivalent of 3,000 health being healed per second, or 3,000 health regeneration. At the same time, you'll be leeching a lot of the damage you do, which is also going to keep your life full. We have 2 points in loathing, so that when enemies attack you, there's a 16% chance that they will be marked for death, which is going to increase the damage they take. 2 points in poison skin means that when you get attacked, for every hit you take, doesn't matter where it's from, the mob that attacked you that hits you will put 6 poison stacks on them and 2 on you. Now the 2 on you is going to kind of be offset by the fact that the 6 that you put on them, you're going to be leeching a good portion of that damage to heal yourself. The bad news is if that enemy dies, you're no longer leeching damage, which means that you gotta look out because an enemy could hit you a bunch of times and then instantly kill themselves, and then you're stuck with the poison damage. So we didn't go 3 stacks. 2 stacks seemed just right. 1 stack did good. If you're finding yourself getting too many stacks of poison on yourself and enemies dying too quick, probably an unempowered content, I would stick with 1 stack. But for empowered, 2 stacks seem to be the right amount of points in here. We also got 4 points in Plague Rat to increase the area, 3 points in Rot Weaver to increase the frequency. Aura of Decay normally poisons an enemy 4 times per second. With this ailment, it will now be 5 times per second. Then we have 1 point in Seeping Wounds and 3 points in Mana Blight. This increases the frequency by another 30%, so now you're at 6 times per second. And 1 point in Poison Soul increases the frequency of poison not only on yourself, but on the enemies by 50%. This will bump you up to poisoning an enemy 8 times per second. That's a lot of poison. Then for Reaper Form, this is basically just an extra free life, as well as it's going to boost your damage. We've got 4 points in Mistress of Decay to reduce the health drain while in Reaper Form, as well as give us 40% increased damage over time. We have 2 points in Blood Tethers. What's nice about this is when an enemy hits you, not only are they going to be poisoned, but there's a 12% chance they will create a blood tether between the two of you, which means it's going to start healing you for the damage of the blood tether that you're doing. Which means not only will you be healed by leeching the amount of poison that's happening, but when a blood tether happens, you will then be healed for some of the life that you're dealing with blood tether. So it can really offset those poison stacks that you're inflicting on yourself, as well as kill the enemy faster. Then we've got 4 points in Harbinger of Blood. This will increase your health leech, your healing effectiveness, and every time you reap per enemy you hit, you will gain 8 life. 2 points in Reaper's Ascendance gives you increased spell damage per second that you're in Reaper Form. You will cap this out with the 25 stacks before Reaper Form ever ends, unless you manually end it by turning off Aura of Decay. The spell damage will not affect Aura of Decay's damage, but it does increase the Spirit Plague and the Wandering Spirits damage. We have 4 points in Soul for a Soul so that you have 80% increased damage. This does lower your healing effectiveness by 40%, which is offset by the Mistress of Decay. I lied. It's offset by the Harbinger of Blood, which increases it by 40%, so it's a double negative. Then you have 4 points in Reaper's Curse, which increases your damage by 100%, gives you crit chance, which we're not worried about. We're not doing any crits, but you will lose 2% of your health on every kill that you do. Not a big deal. Then for Spirit Plague, we have the setup to poison the enemy, to plague the enemy, and then also it's going to give you 75% more damage over time per enemy that you've hit with it in the last 4 seconds. So we've got 4 points in the Focus Application, so that it has mana efficiency, as well as the ailments, and the Spirit Plague itself is going to have increased duration on the enemies. 2 points in Toxic Transmission, so that every time you cast it on an enemy, they will gain 2 more stacks of poison on them. Perpetuity increases the cast speed of it, as well as the duration of the plague. 5 points in Pestilence increases your global damage over time by 75% per enemy that you've hit on it with the last 4 seconds, which is huge. 1 point in Plague Bearer so that you will plague the target, and 3 points in Queen of Plagues to increase that effective plague by 150%, as well as 3 points in Endless Decay gives you more poison damage for the enemies that you've afflicted with Spirit Plague in the last 4 seconds, so you can stack your dot damage and your poison damage with this skill. You'll notice when you hit a whole bunch of enemies with it, your damage will skyrocket quite a bit. For passives, we have 27 points in the Acolyte base class with 7 points in Blood Aura, 8 points in Stolen Vitality, 1 point in Blood Pact, 5 points in Crimson Gluttony, and 6 points in Forbidden Knowledge. And then we have 86 points in the Mastered Lich with 10 points in Apocrypha, 8 points in Survival of the Cruel, 8 points in Dance with Death, 8 points in Lasting Stench, 4 points in Bed of Souls, 8 points in Crippling Insight, 8 points in Unclosing Wounds, 8 points in 3 Plagues, 5 points in Contagion Engine, 1 point in Volatile Blood, 5 points in Ageless Ascetic, 5 points in Soul Maul, and 8 points in Corrosive Consciousness. For idols, items, and blessings, we're running the 2x2s. You want 4 of these that have increased healing effectiveness on them. I know that you can snapshot with Aura of Decay. We are not doing that in this build guide. However, if you want and you know how to do it, you can do that. So after you activate Aura of Decay, take these off and put whole life idols on, or increased damage idols, whatever you want to do. You can have massive amounts more life. You could, hit 4,000, 5,000 life if you do all health idols. However, it's not a function of the game you're supposed to do, and since it won't be there in online play, we're not going to do it in here. You can run this build just fine without it, and you'll see that in the gameplay. None of the gameplay, none of anything in here is snapshotted for Aura of Decay. The other thing we have is some 1x1s that can increase damage over time. Your resistances, whether it be physical, necrotic, poison, whatever, you can get those on the 1x1s to help fill those in. Then for items, no uniques required, all crafted items. We got a wand on. I'm just going to hover over all of these. Basically, we're stacking healing effectiveness on the item slots that you can get that, as well as much health as possible in every suffix that you can. And of course, this build planner will now be available in the build guides or written guides as well now. It has been missing, but it is finally updated, and it will now be in all of the guides. So you can go through here, check the blessings, check everything. In our blessings, I do recommend that you get the critical strike avoidance if you don't have 100% on gear through the Emperor of Chaos. I don't have that blessing yet, but it will get us to 100% once we do. And then of course we have more endurance, so that you take less damage when your life does get to a low threshold. Now since we stacked so much health, your endurance threshold is actually quite high. I have about 700 endurance threshold on this build, so we take that 60% reduced damage when you get down to that 700 life barrier, which is really big for the build as it's a huge damage reduction. And then of course, as long as you survive for 1 second, all your life will instantly be healed back up. For the character sheet, as you can see, we're not capped on all resistances. We are capped on poison, obviously, since we're taking the most poison damage, but you don't really need the rest of your resistances to be capped. However, it will improve your survivability when you get into the really tough empowered content. And then for damage types, you can see we're at about 350% spell, as well as about 360% damage over time. All of that will get boosted when you're in Reperform and such. We do have about 55 points of int and 37 points of vitality, and we're sitting at about 3,300 life. And again, this is with no exalted gear, and this is with no health idols. If you snapshot Aura of Decay, as I stated, and put on health idols, you will easily break that 4,000 life barrier. If you have really good idols and you max out on them, you might even hit 5,000 life, which is a little ridiculous. And then just for how to play the build and the skill rotation, so obviously you'll have Aura of Decay active, and then you'll never worry about it again. Just the Aura of Decay damage, if we sit in here, you can see we're doing about 6,000 damage, which isn't like a huge amount, but we're going to boost it several ways, and with Spirit Plague it'll be increased even more. So if I hit this thing with a couple of Spirit Plagues, you'll notice our damage instantly goes up. We double our damage. Then we'll also have Wandering Spirits, which we'll have on autocast. If we do these on top of doing some Spirit Plagues, our damage will skyrocket even further, and you can easily break the 25. Look, we got to 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 damage right there. And then of course you have when you have Reperform active, so we can go ahead and jump in Reperform, then throw it down. You'll have even more damage that you're doing, and it's just going to allow you to stack a whole lot of damage on enemies. So here you can see we broke 97,000, almost 100,000 damage ticks. There's 110,000 damage tick. It's a little bit ridiculous how much damage you can do with this poison build. Now, it's not no 1.7 million damage build like we had before, but that's because we're based around Aura of Decay and not some other things that we were doing with a whole lot of minions. But this build will wipe out single targets quite quickly, as well as runs through trash mobs and kills them as you just pass through, as you see in the gameplay. and it is very endurance viable. You can see that you're supposed to be degenning health right now when you're in Aura of Decay. Right now, we're actually just out leeching it. We're not even using the healing per second. We're just straight up out leeching the decay and the poison stacks that we have. So we have 7 stacks of poison on us, and we're instantly just out leeching that right now. Now, granted, you'll do less damage and therefore leech less when you're attacking enemies, but you'll also be attacking multiple enemies because you have a huge AoE and just running through them. So the healing and the leech together are going to have a very high amount of survivability for you, and you're going to find yourself into empowered content rather easily. Now, the reason I said this was not new player friendly, I do not recommend leveling up with this. It's not the most friendly thing until you have a certain threshold of healing effectiveness and health. You want to make sure it starts feeling good when you get to about 400% healing effectiveness and about 2,000 minimum life. That's kind of the stats you want to go for. So when you break 2,000 life, you know, you find maybe you found some exalted gear that had health on it or hybrid health, so you decided to throw those on. And then 400% healing effectiveness, you can get that just from the idols. However, you know, you might throw some on gear as well as a couple of idols, maybe some health idols to get you there and get you started. But once min-maxed, this build does awesome. And again, in here, it's not even min-maxed. We could snapshot, and again, we could wear exalted gear, which we're not. You could easily find yourself 5,000 HP plus doing lots and lots of damage. Alright, that's going to be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoy playing Aura of Decay as a poison and not with Decreptify as an armor shred skill, which is 99% of the time what you find it doing. And I hope that you find it as an easy, not only boss killing, but speed running build through Echoes. And I hope you enjoy it, and as always, I'm going to leave you with some gameplay, and stay safe, travelers.